So today I'm going to show you how to correctly and safely jack up your vehicle. So one of the first things to do is make sure you get into your vehicle. When you're in your vehicle, make sure that it is in gear and also that the handbrake is engaged so that the vehicle can remain steady and stationary. You can obviously, if you're going to do the handbrake or the rear brakes, you can disengage the handbrake after you've lifted the car and it is in the air. The second thing you're going to need to do is, depending on which wheels or end of the vehicle you're going to lift, say for instance you want to lift the rear side of the vehicle, then you need to ensure that you put a wheel chock or a wheel block like this behind the front wheel or the other wheels that's going to remain on the ground at all times so that the car cannot roll backwards at all. If you do not have one of those chocks, like the one you see over there by the wheel, you have other options as well, like for instance you've got the wheel chock like I've explained now. You can use a normal brick as well like this, or you can even use a wooden block, anything to put behind the wheel to prevent the vehicle from rolling back while you've got it jacked up in the air. If you're lifting the entire backside, highly recommend that you put one of those behind each of the front wheels while you're jacking it up. Another thing to remember is to ensure that the vehicle is on a fairly level surface so that you will be able to jack it fairly parallel to the floor and that it's not going to be skew or at an angle, and that would be unstable or unstable as well while you're jacking the vehicle. Next, you have to decide on the jack you're going to use. Now, you do get a few different ones, but the most basic ones are either the floor jack or the trolley jack over here. We've got a bottle jack, also hydraulic over here, or we've got the regular scissor jack, which comes standard in most vehicles. Now, the thing with the scissor jack, the one over here, is that this should preferably not be used while doing any work on the vehicle. This is mainly used for purposes of like changing a tire or a wheel if you have a flat wheel and need to change it with the spare. So this is not as stable as the other ones, and it is highly recommended that this is only used for replacing wheels. The second important thing to remember is if you're going to use the bottle jack or the scissor jack in a case like this, it is very important to remember that the ground surface is very important. So if you do not have a stable or a hard surface to jack the vehicle on, which is always preferred, but you're doing it on a grassy area or sandy area like this, very important to use a more solid base like a piece of plank or a piece of wood or metal of any sort that you can use to put below the jack and then jack the vehicle off it to give you a bit more stable base to jack it on. A very important tip to remember. So if you come underneath the car, you'll see that on the side panels, here's the rear wheel, here's the door, and here's the cowling, the side cowling and so on. Now obviously, first thing not to do is don't put it directly under this cowling. This is thin sheet metal and this is part of the bodywork, and this will instantly crush, or not instantly, but this will definitely crush or be dented in and get damaged, like a picture I'll show you now. But so don't put it underneath here, the jack, at all directly. If you go further underneath, we'll go like this. You'll see that also there are some plastic panels underneath like this, and the floor of the vehicle over there, also very thin metal. Do not put the jack underneath that. Instead, you'll see on the side body line over here, just put it a bit up, there's even a cutout from the plastic side gown. You'll see it's automatically cut out here, and there is a piece of metal or lip basically that sticks out, and this is a designated jacking point for the vehicle. It's got this in the back, and it's also got it on the front on all four corners. So that would be, in this case, the efficient or the perfect jacking point for this vehicle. Some other vehicles will also have like the chassis at the bottom that's visible. Unlike this car, this is more of a unibody style car, but I'll put a picture of a chassis where you can also put the jack. And some vehicles with a more solid cast iron or iron metal diff, you can put the jack under the diff as well, which is not the case in this car, as you cannot reach or see the diff in this specific vehicle. Also, do not do it on an aluminium diff or a soft diff, that might damage or bend the diff. So let me show you how I'm going to put the different jacks underneath this jacking point over here. Another important part to remember is not to use the control arms over there to as a jacking point, because as you see, as the vehicle lifts, it is then at an angle, and the possibility of it sliding off the jack is very high. So a stationary or solid point of the chassis or vehicle or jacking point is always recommended, and not moving parts like the control arms over there. So when you've got those prerequisites accomplished and you've got it at an appropriate level, the car and the appropriate space, I'm going to use a trolley jack in this instance. Going to make sure that it is locked, that it's not going to go down while we're still busy using it. And then underneath the vehicle, on the space that we have determined is the appropriate jacking point, we're going to make sure that the jacking point over here is exactly where it needs to be underneath in order for the vehicle to be jacked. And then we're going to simply start jacking the vehicle up, ensuring that the surface that we've got between the jack and the car is steady and it won't be able to slip. And then we're steadily going to keep on jacking the vehicle up into the air like so. Like that. Until you can see that the wheel is basically off the ground and we can continue to do whatever work is necessary. Once the car is in the air, you'll see that the lip part or the part of the vehicle is secured into the cup of the jack, so this is steady and will not be able to fall down. Another important thing to remember is that this specific lip on the vehicle, there where the jacking point is, it is very important if you're going to use something like, for instance, the scissor jack or the bottle jack, depending on which you've got. Now on the top of the scissor jack and bottle jack, you've got this nice little attachment with grooves, and the purpose of that is to be able to go into or over that little lip over there, so it's a solid connection or a solid joint when you are lifting the vehicle up. But once again, very important to remember that these specific jacks, along with the bottle jack, are not always your first choice should you wish to do work on the vehicle, mainly for changing tires or wheels. Once the vehicle has been lifted off the ground, as you can see here with the jack, we've got a little bit of light underneath as well. You should not commence or continue any work, whether it's being replacing a wheel or doing work onto the vehicle, just in the current state. The next step you're going to have to do is use a jack stand like this, which is called a jack stand or an axle stand or a trestle, depending on where we come from. But that is the next important step. So we're going to put it once again underneath a solid part, non-moving part of the vehicle. We're going to put it like so. And you'll see that it's being able to extend up unto a certain point, as close to the vehicle point that you've got, the jacking point up there. Very important to ensure that it is secure, as well as the lever over here, so that this is not being able to slip down, because if it is not secured and only partially locked in place, let's use an example like this, and the vehicle is resting on top of it and it was not locked in place, the vehicle could drop to a certain depth or a certain height and you could get injured badly. So very important, once this is to the acquired height, make sure that it is solid and the locking lever is in place as well. So once that is in place, we can now go to the jack again, and it is recommended to not always leave the vehicle standing on the jack alone when you're working. So in this case, we're going to steadily and slowly lower the vehicle onto the jack stand, just until it rests on the jack stand, and then you can lock the jack again as a backup. You'll see that the jack is a bit loose now. I can move it around, but the jack stand or the axle stand is solid. And you can see if I'm trying to push the car, this is solid. It's a nice steady stand and it's not going anywhere. Very important to check whether it's steady and steadfast before you start working, to ensure that it is safe. The next thing that you want to do is, if you're going to, for instance, take off the wheel to change it or to do the brakes or whatever that sort, take the wheel itself and put it sideways underneath the vehicle as a backup as well, so that should something go wrong, you've got extra protection for the vehicle and for yourself, so you do not get hurt. So now that the car's in the air and stable, we've got it on the jack stand or the axle stand on there. The jack is still underneath the vehicle. and we've still got the chock or the wheel block behind the front wheel, or the wheels that are still remaining on the ground, to ensure that it's safe. If you wish to change the rear wheel, you should have loosened the wheel beforehand, but we'll get to that in a different video, how to change the wheel. But if that was the case, you can now go back into your vehicle and you can loosen the handbrake like so. The vehicle is still again resting against the front block, the front wheel over there, standing on the wheel in front, and the wheel is now completely loose. It's still in gear, so it won't move yet, but you can take it out of gear as well if you need to do brakes or whatever the case may be, and then remove it completely. Once you are finished with all of this, you can do all the steps in reverse again. You can start with putting it back in gear, pulling up the handbrake, and underneath the vehicle you can then make sure that the jack is still steady. Let me remove the light down there as well. Going to slightly lift the vehicle with the jack once again, just so that the jack stand is then free once again, like so. We can drop that, take it out, put it one side, and once again steadily and slowly lower the vehicle like this. Let's just get a better view of that. Slowly and steadily. That might have been a slight bit fast, but you should do it a slight bit slower, and then remove the jack as well. After that is done, you can then remove the wheel chock as well from the front wheel, like so. And since the handbrake is on and it's still in gear, the vehicle is then secure. If need be, you can then lock the wheel nuts or the wheel studs if you were replacing or working on the wheel. And that is basically the correct procedures of how to lift your vehicle and how to do it safely. Very important thing to remember is do not work under the vehicle if it is resting only on a jack. Always be sure that it's on a solid stand like a trestle or an axle stand, and that the vehicle is secure with a wheel chock or a brick or a wooden block, whatever you have on hand. And then put whatever you can under the vehicle to make it safe, like maybe the wheel or whatever else you had, but never with the jack alone. So if you found this video helpful, be sure to like it. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so yet. So until next time, thank you very much, guys.